when you think about it, we say we live in a three-dimensional space, like the third dimension, right? But when we were kids, we didn't actually see like that. That's why when you hide something from a baby, they think it's gone. It's only as their brain develops that they realize it's still there, and then suddenly their whole experience of the world changes. So it makes you wonder, like, if we grow into new dimensions of awareness as children, what happens when we pass away? Is it possible that death is just another shift or another evolution into a dimension we can't see yet? Because our eyes only realize and take in the tiniest fraction of what's actually around us. And that is quite a nice little segue into my evening at a clairvoyancy. Random weekday night in London. A friend of ours that is within kind of the hotel industry decided to invite us along as he was going through, and he had been a couple times. Didn't know what to expect, had no expectations whatsoever, except for I am not going to speak or say pretty much anything other than I'm going to be questioning, and I'm going to be not second guessing, but in a way I'm going to be making sure that I am giving them no signals as to things that they could then interpret as something. Like, this was a test for myself. It was an experiment. Decided to go along, paid £25, I think it was, for charity. And then I was in it. I was waiting around. My partner came with me. There was a group that had gathered that also knew this person that had brought us together. And we sat down, and the clairvoyant was in front of me. And her first question was, "Is your dad in spirit?" And I thought, okay, well, that's a little bit of an open-ended question, actually, but I said yes, my dad is, because my dad had passed away many years ago in 2009. So I said yes. And then she said, okay, well, he's here with us now. And immediately I felt something different in me, but again, she hadn't said anything that was accurate, right? So I was like, okay, cool. And she said, does the name Ivor ring any bells to you? And Ivor was my dad's name. Then I started to kind of lean in, because then I was like, that's not a, James, Paul, that's not a common name. That is a unique name. So I leant in, and it's like, yeah. And then she said, and he's here with a person called Philip. He's here with Philip. And she said, they've got a relationship. Do you know Philip? And Philip was my dad's dad, so my grandpa, but he had passed away when I was still quite young. The only memory, I've got two memories with him. One where he gave me a watch from Spur with an orange cover, and I thought it was great. So I remember that, and him putting it on my wrist, and then him helping me pass a rugby ball. That's as much as I remember of him, and his name, of course. And what's quite interesting is then she has now said that. Anyway, the conversation carried on, and she knew things that she probably, you can't Google. It was before Facebook. It was before any of that stuff. It checked out. And her saying, your dad is in spirit and he's here, that kept on my mind, because then I was like, well, how can my dad be around me, but how do I interact with him? If I was able to see more of the universe, just like a baby sees the toy again, or whatever you hid under the blanket, or whatever it is, right? just like a baby then sees that in their experience again, what if we can't see what is around us and what is within our experience, but it is there? And through Tesla's vibration frequency, energy kind of thinking, that what if they are interpreting energies? What if they are receiving signals or messages or whatever it is around them because they are sensitive to that? And what if we just can't see it? And every now and then there might be an instance where we see a repeated number, or we see something, and yes, you could say that that's a red car theory. Fine. The red car theory, for those of you that don't know, is if you're looking for a red car, you're going to see a lot of red cars. Obviously you don't if in a city, right? I'm talking in a setting where there are multiple cars driving through, not just maybe on a farmland where there's one white car, because that wouldn't work. But yeah, like the red car theory, it could just be that. But for me, it was an interesting thought of dimensions, of really illusions within the reality that we experience, and then illusions within, like, what can we not see? Why do cats sometimes just like get up and stare at a corner in the top of the room, or dogs as well? Like, what do they know? What can they see? What is there? Or is it just like a flea bit them? Or like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many different scenarios, but just because we can't see something doesn't necessarily mean it exists, right? Somewhat some basis for some religions as well, I suppose. But like, it's super interesting. And then I went deep into this and I started trying to articulate and understand what this means. And I came across the 5 illusions from Deepak Chopra. The illusion of predictability, control, time, identity, and matter. Those are the 5 illusions, according to Deepak. And predictability is, we think we can always know what will happen next, but life surprises us. And he uses the example here of he was meant to do like a 1-hour flight between 2 cities, and it ended up taking him like 24 times that amount, or whatever the number was, right? It took him much longer than something that he had planned and that should have been predictable. Like, it's an illusion to think that something is predictable. And that can open up, obviously, different doors and avenues of conversation. But the next one that it sort of leads into is then control. Because we think we can make everything go away, but the world moves how it wants. We feel like we've got the power. We feel like we've got the ability to control our surroundings. And the thing that I wrote on my Substack the other day is around this sense of control. The more we try to control something, the more we try to make sure that it works out just the way that we want it to work out, the more we actually distance ourselves from it and we don't see it. Because for something unknown to occur, in my experience, for something unknown to occur, you would have to be able to know how to get it and the steps to get it in full clarity. But if you don't have that clarity yet, and you're holding on to these imagined steps or these imagined doors that will lead you to the end place, the end goal, or whatever you're seeking out, if you're so narrowly focused on that path is imagined. That path isn't necessarily real. You might be using real people within it. Like, for instance, when I was in a corporate, I thought, okay, if the marketing director has my back and the CEO likes this, then I could get a promotion. Yeah, fine. Like, that makes strategic sense. But from more of like a wider lens of like a goal that you've been striving for or that you've been holding, and it just doesn't seem to happen for you. Maybe it's not the goal that's a problem. Perhaps it is. Maybe it isn't meant for you in terms of like meant for you right now where you are in life. Maybe it is meant for you, but you need to go through other experiences and other learnings and other shapes and understandings to be able to see that perspective more clearly. But at the same time, like, keep the end goal in mind. Keep the focus of, for me, I want to be an entrepreneur and be able to survive on an income from my company and be able to impact lives around the world and to really get people to lean into their own self-knowledge and understand their self-worth and understand that they have the power and the agency to make their own decisions for themselves for the betterment of their lives and those around them. Because if everybody starts to do that and everybody leads with grace, everybody leads with self-knowledge and understanding of real emotions and is able to stop generational traumas and stop other traumas taking place within the world that lead to more trauma, like if we can stop that cyclical effect, then we will live in a higher baseline. That doesn't mean that everything is going to be perfect all of the time and we're going to, no, it doesn't mean that. It just means that the baseline of unhappiness and of feeling alone in the world and unseen and whatever else, right? The fear of judgment, the fear of failure, the fear of winning, and countless other fears. All of those can shift up a notch in terms of reducing the attachment of what if I fail, and more, what will I learn? Like, if we can reframe that as a society, I believe we can push ourselves so much further into advancement of what it means to be human, not what it means to work with technology and consumerism and all these things that are taking us for some of the way away from being human and pushing more towards lining the pockets of individuals that find ways to market to you. Like, noise and distraction and attention are so vital in today's world. And all of this is happening beyond our understanding, beyond our comprehension, only until we experience something that awakens us to that comprehension and to that perspective and to see how others are playing within it, right? I'm currently in contract negotiations with an individual, and I was quite disappointed in terms of like what was being said and what was actually then trying to be structured into an agreement. And I woke up from a dream and I had like a bit of an epiphany, not to say that it would have come true or whatever, but my mind put together kind of the trajectory of this and the elements within that contract and what that could mean in the future. And there was a hard misalignment within that, which, yeah, like now I can see from a different perspective. I can see the importance of having things in black and white, of having, like the video, of having things like detailed, because it's so vital and so important. Because he said, she said, in the world that we live, like, yeah, I mean, the big guy is always going to win, right? Hopefully there's David and Goliath moments, but but anyway, so control. So we think that we can control everything, but actually the world moves, and there's so many other people like you, like me, that are also striving for something or looking to attain something or to find peace for themselves or to get the new job or the new car or the new house or to have kids, or like there's so many different elements at play here and so many different relationships coming together within cities, towns, within suburbs, within like postcodes. Like there's so much happening and so many people trying to do their own things that there is never going to be the sense of predictability on an individual level. Yes, you can predict when you have large amounts of data, for instance, like Amazon and Meta and TikTok and whoever can source information and be able to see patterns and see data pops and searches of what's being searched here and why and what incident triggered that. When you start to see that, you learn patterns and you start to see how humanity exists. But if you're living within that, if you're living within the singular or a group of friends or 20 people that are around you or you're communicating with, on a weekly basis, you're not going to be able to see from the scope of like millions of people, millions of interactions, what's happening. That is really quite powerful, to be able to have that information at hand and to be able to then deliver different things to market to help with efficiencies or effectiveness within that. So that's great. But then at the same time, you can also see learned behavior and patterns of doing things, and you can be able to predict, and also you be able to guide people, not necessarily to their knowing, down a path. And I suppose that's where like fears are and conspiracy theories and whatever else, right? But you are able to do that because you're able to predict what people would be doing. Largely, yes, you have your edge cases and whatever else, but you're able to see like a large majority will do this. And with majorities, normally that aligns with laws, that aligns with ways of doing things, norms, stereotypes, etc. Like that is a movement in and of itself. So if you can control that movement, then you pretty much are able to, with quite a lot of control, you're able to know where that's going to lead, and you can evolve from there, right? So for us to try and control on an individual level, like our own space, we need to be more fluid. We need to have the outcome in mind, but we need to get there along the journey of experience. Just keep pushing, keep working at it, keep doing what fuels you, doing what gives you energy, because you are going to move closer and closer and closer and closer to that or something like that. Because again, if you haven't experienced that yet, there might be a better experience that is along that path, but more for you. But you'll only know it through action. You'll only know it through walking towards that goal, that there might be something else. And yeah, you could zigzag for most of your life, but as long as it's fueling you and giving you energy and you feeling alive and you feeling happy, and it's not like you've given up on a dream, you're still doing that dream, and the dream is that journey, and it's the melody in the song that plays out for your life, right? If you're still doing that and you're still holding true something that brings you joy and challenges you in the right way, then you need to continue doing that, in my opinion. Because what's the alternative? The alternative is you work for someone that you don't want to work for a brand that you don't believe in, that you earn money to pay rent just to go back to work to start all over again, the hamster wheel. What if you could do what actually excites you? Yes, and get paid for it. Yes, and promote it. And yes, and whatever else like that comes along with that. But why not try have more joy and more fun and more experience and drive your curiosity further through here than here. So anyway, that's control. Time, we think time is running out, but time is just how we count change. That's interesting because time is a human construct, right? So time doesn't exist. What exists is now. Eckhart Tolle, wonderful book, The Power of Now. That is what we are always in, the eternal now. So if we are in the eternal now, time is just a way of counting change, of seasons, of crops, of weather patterns, etc., etc. Like it's something to be able to try and predict more, but prediction is an illusion, as we've covered in the first place. But that's time, all right? Identity, we think we are one fixed thing, but we are always changing. Our identity is important to us, right? Like our identity as our nationality, as our religion, as our or no religion, or our values, or our purpose, all of that feeds into this identity, this ego, this I, right? This self, etc. No matter what you want to call it, everything falls into that. But at the same time, if we evolving and everything's evolving around us, and there's cycles of life and death, if that is constantly happening, then our identity will shift if we're allowed to shift, unless we're holding on to something, which means we're holding on to previous belief and previous value based on the life that we were once, a point in time that we were once at. but so much has evolved since then. But if we holding on to something here, then it must really be important. Or maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just something that is part of us and we say that's just who we are. But we can change. So identity shouldn't be fixed. Identity is fluid. Yeah, it's quite interesting, that topic as well. And then the fifth one of the illusions is matter. We think things are solid, but they're mostly empty space. Like, okay, cool. Our bodies are atoms. This table is atoms. I don't know if you can see that on the video, but anyway, there's a table here. Like, everything is a combination of, I mean, what, quarks are the smallest that we have interpreted so far. Like, everything is atoms that are coming together. Everything is then energy, right? Because science, and I won't get into that now, I want to bring it back into that those are the 5 illusions of life. We have an illusion experience, and we can see it with kids and babies when you hide a toy underneath a blanket or behind your back or whatever it is, and then you reappear that toy, they will have a surprise on their face, right? Until we learn about depth, until we learn about like the 3D world around us, the dimension, right? We then can articulate space, time, etc. Like we start to learn the framework in which we operate as a society as we grow older. And yet this whole thing of what happens after death, like religions have touched on, you know, heaven and hell. Other religions say reincarnation. Like there's so many different possibilities that are expressed. And part of my curiosity is trying to figure out what that means for me, what my understanding of that is, and what brings me peace in knowing that. And so far, what I'm coming back to, and I've read different religious texts, etc., but what I'm coming back to is we know that we are atoms that are held together, and basically we create matter, right? We are matter, okay? If we are that, therefore energy, we are energy, okay? We're a system of energy. We can even interpret the electromagnetic fields that are coming from your heart, your brain, etc., right? So if we are energy, energy can, a law that we know, right, that is until now proven solid, the law that we know is that energy can either be created or destroyed. It can only change form. So like water to ice to steam, right? We have changed form from the sperm cells that we once were, right? We see it in the animal kingdom as well. Like we see that in plants, seeds, etc., right? So you go from one stage to another stage. And when you're in your mother's womb, I heard this on a post, and I thought this was fantastic, is when you're in your mother's womb, if you're there, that is your world. That's all that exists. Nothing outside of what you are experiencing exists. Yes, you might get auditory, etc., feedback coming through, but again, your reality is just that womb. So on the other side of that womb is the unknown, right? Because you haven't experienced it yet, but we experience it. We're able to see what happens. But you're never going to be able to give that information to that baby to be able to interpret it at the time, to be able to then understand and articulate what this world will be, right? Airplanes flying you from different countries, music's banned, like politics, all the isms that should be cancelled from society, like all of that, right, is an experience that we didn't know existed. So then what's on the other side of life? We see with plants, like, okay, when they die, the seeds have spread and the seeds grow, and we see it in nature around us that evolution takes place, and sometimes things go extinct, but sometimes it continues, it grows. that's an interpretation that we see in our reality. So why is that not the same for our own experience in terms of this evolution, this planting of the seeds? And if energy can't be destroyed, it can only change form, then the energy that we have within us, yes, our heart stops beating, etc., but the energy that we have within us surely goes into this dimensional, this thing that we have not been able to experience yet. And that's quite exciting to try and uncover and understand, but at the same time, I don't know if we could ever truly understand that. Perhaps with the pineal gland and perhaps reducing our fluoride intake, and perhaps, but again, that will be an experience. Other things will be an experience. It won't be the experience. We will only know the experience once we have the experience. But anyway, it's an interesting thought. It's something I'm curious about. The illusions of life, I suppose, and trying to find out how, why, in what form my dad is, and my grandpa, and everyone else that has lost someone and loved someone and whatever else to a passing. Like, it's quite interesting to think of what happens next. At least it is for me. And how we keep them within us. And I mean, we ourselves are part of thousands and thousands and thousands of years of evolution, right? We exist today because our parents had us, and their parents had them, and their parents had them, and their parents had them, right? Not to say that all mothers and fathers are great or that they were in your lives or whatever, but at some point in time, like, there's an evolution. And the evolution of those people, like, our parents learned from their environment around them and from their community and from life and from whatever interests they took and whatever experiences they had, and how much they pushed into those experiences and understandings to gain their own insights and own perspectives, and how much of that just became the norm and not really an awareness of. And then it goes the same for their parents and their parents' parents, and basically right down the line for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, right? You get the point. Everybody's an evolution of what society were holding true, the kinds of influences, the music, the stories, the everything, the learnings, the laws, the creation of light, the creation of internet, everything is an evolution to now. And so everything after us will continue to be an evolution of us. The DNA continues to run through. The thinking, the nature of how we exist is around us. And there was this quote that I'm going to paraphrase and probably get it so wrong, but there's this quote of how much of human nature does society allow, and how much of society does human nature allow? Something to that effect. And it's quite interesting because it's this paradox, right, of we exist within the time and place that we do now. If we'd existed 2,000 years ago, our experience of life would have been totally different, and our experience of what we can and couldn't do would be totally different. So we can only grow as much as the society around us and the laws of the land and everything allow for that. But at the same time, the only laws and society and the guidance and everything that is put in place is because of where we are in society right now, and we have the ability to change that and to change the trajectory of future generations by interpreting things that are right now and that should be right for us and for humans into the future. So human rights, running fresh water for everyone, shelter, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the baseline level of needs should be a law that everybody has. Everybody is permitted for that at the lowest bearing fruit. Like, that should be a baseline. That's a belief that I have, at least. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts. I know maybe it wasn't as sequential as some other speakers might have, but that's just the way that my brain operates. That's things that drive me curious. And yeah, I got kind of curious about this dimension and illusion effect, and how it relates to life and death, and how it relates to our eyes only being able to pick up a portion of reality. And I suppose that's a raw reality that we experience, or the reality that we experience, not necessarily the raw one. It's our interpretation and lens, our conditioned lens that is put over it. But you get the sense of what I'm saying, and hopefully something within this made sense for you, or resonated for you, or made you curious for you in your own walk of life. So thank you very much for listening for this half hour. I know I can talk, but thank you for listening.